So, you win the Jeep. I know you put a lot of entries in for it with Nick.
Nope, nope, kinda the opposite.
How do you opposite of you? Did you lose a car?
Yeah.
Your car got stolen?
Yeah. Karma, man.
Yeah, the Lord saw fit to humble you.
Oh, if only that was the only way.
Well, you know what this means, don't you?
Andrew, we can't steal his car.
Yes, we can. That's the only way to make this right.
Okay then, whose car are we taking?
Oh, I see. Too soon.
Yeah, too soon.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the Into the Deep podcast. I'm joined as always by my good buddy Josh, and I'm Andrew,
The Kurt Locker, the Hurt Locker,
AK-47.
the other AK guy.
The lesser known AK guy.
Um,
that's how I'll start signing off.
yeah,
The AK guy, not that one.
not that one. Don't sue us, please. And I'm Josh, the chubby youth minister.
We're so getting sued.
No, we're not. We're not big enough to be sued.
It's true. Anyway,
Also, I don't feel like they're very litigious individuals unless it's like, you know, something serious. Like, the Buffalo school system. Bring that back up.
we didn't forget.
Or Tony.
Oh, that's gonna be a fun couple months.
Oh, it's gonna be great.
It's gonna be great.
I
Hey.
re-downloaded X just for this.
It's gonna be
And
fun to watch,
I want Nick to like tear his quad so we can get another binder.
right? Sir, a second binder has hit the algorithm. Anyway,
But this time I want it but this time I want it to be the Epstein binder.
if only.
Um
Anyway, let's do a quick catch up because from our cold open, you have some exciting news.
yeah, so where do I start? My car got stolen.
What did they steal? I think this is important to tell
They
them the
stole a
contents.
2016 Kia Sportage.
Like they weren't exactly looking for a McLaren here.
No, but Kias are notoriously easy to steal. So, my car got stolen, with several other personal artifacts, including my wallets, including my fishing pole, my Bible, my prayer books.
Which, out of all the things they could have taken, that's the thing that I find most interesting. They stole your Bible and your breviary.
Yeah, it's quite tragic.
But there's a silver lining to this. You have officially had to fill out the form that says you are not a woman.
Yes, my driver's license that I got in the state of Michigan a little over a year and a half ago, because I delayed as long as possible getting a Michigan driver's license. Because my Texas driver's license hadn't expired, so why would I go and pay for a new one? Um, Apparently, the default selection is female, not male. And even though I have my birth certificate, my previous driver's license, my social security number, my place of residence, all the things, and my general like demeanor and
Demeanor.
look,
your masculine face.
um, you know, still was put down as a woman. And so I had been in a long battle with the Michigan Secretary of State, refusing to fill out a form that said I was requesting a sex change.
But now you didn't have to because you just needed to get a new license.
Exactly. And it was great. It took me here's the thing. All right, all you other states, all you other plebeian states. I'm not saying Michigan is great. I have never spent more than 15 minutes at the DMV in Michigan.
I don't
I
know
don't know
which
how
DMV
this,
you went to because that's never been the case for me.
bro, set up the appointment. I was in and out in 15 minutes.
Did they ask for a copy of the Treaty of Versailles and the blood of your
Nope,
firstborn? Wow,
nope.
you must have gotten Rhonda or something. She's like just the beast of the DMV because every time I go, it is a battle and a half.
I mean, what have you had to do there?
Just like getting basic stuff renewed or transfer of title, stuff like that. Absolutely impossible.
Oh, see, okay, even when I had to register my car in Michigan, the car that got stolen last year, I had the title paperwork, I had all the paperwork. I went in, they're like, all right, all your paperwork's here. You're good to go.
Witchcraft, wizardry.
Listen, man. Listen, all I'm saying is like because of their appointment system, it's made it so much easier than like, if I want to go to the DMV in Texas, for example, I have to arrive like an hour and a half before it opens, and I might get in before lunch.
I mean, we've had the appointment system for a long time, but I've always had horrible luck with it. But I'm glad it worked
Yeah.
out for you.
Yeah. So my car got stolen, and then I've renewed my now yearly tradition of getting sick over the Labor Day weekend.
Yes, indeed.
And so I've been sick for the last couple days, hence why we're recording this on a Wednesday instead of a Monday.
It's Wednesday, my
Also,
dudes.
it's Wednesday, my dudes. The week before, the day my car got stolen was the start of student welcome week,
You know,
which means
just
I
one
have to
of
be
the
at work.
busiest weeks of the year for you.
Right. Between this week and last week, between this current week and last week, I'm going to be working a total of like, I think, 115 hours.
Sheesh.
Yeah. So it's a fun time. Anyways, how are you, Andrew? What's been going on in your life?
Nothing nearly as exciting. I've gotten super into Warhammer. Been
No,
been listening to a lot of it. My friend Towers just gotten me absolutely hooked, as you read in my blog post,
I
which you
didn't
can
read
check
your
out
blog
at
post.
Duke and Alta Media. Thoughts and
I didn't
musings.
read your blog. I didn't read your blog post, by the way.
Yeah, I kind of figured. But I've gotten some glowing
Um,
reviews from other people. Um,
so you're into Warhammer 40K now.
yes, I am.
We're not playing Warhammer, the
No, no, no,
TTRPG version.
no, 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 no. I don't have money for that.
I also don't want to be that much of a nerd.
But I was talking about it with Uncle Dave a little bit yesterday. The thing that I like about it is there is so much lore and books out there, and even like the creators of it even left space in the canon for role like for like fan fiction because they wanted people to expand on it. So there's a lot of really great creative stories out there.
Nice.
I've only just scratched the surface, but I'm really enjoying that. I got a new PR at the gym yesterday. Uh,
Finally benched the bar, I see.
uh, was let me try to remember. It's 145, 150 on the bench press, which I know is
Incline
not
or flat bench?
flat bench Smith machine, but uh, still I was pleasantly surprised I was able to do it because it was a big jump. I hate the Smith machines at Planet Fitness, and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna do it today, and jumped up. I was like, all right, shoot. So I'm feeling good.
Have you tried like do they have like the supine bench where it's like the plate loaded
Yeah,
with
yeah.
like the two lever arms?
I've tried that before. I like that one too. It's a little different, but I like it.
I mean, it's basically a dumbbell bench press because you can just
Yeah, because it's
you're not
still
having to use
individual.
yeah, but you can load it heavier.
Yeah, just I don't know what it is about our Planet because I've seen two different types of Smith machines at Planet Fitness, but this one the angle on it's funny. It locks weird. I haven't liked it, but I tried it yesterday, and actually I did really well on it. So I'll probably start rotating that back in. I'm starting doing
Nice.
legs again. Just overall, I'm feeling very healthy.
Yeah, how was OCIA?
Jose was good. We started a little bit late, unfortunately. We started late, and then the meal went long, and then the talk went long. So I didn't get home till almost 9:30 last night. But good talk, and our new equipment is awesome. So I'm straight chilling. I've got a couple meetings this week. A lot of stuff with the Knights. I'm I'm big chillin'. I have my car still.
Mm-hmm.
Too soon?
Just a little bit. You're just rubbing salt in the wound.
All right. Well, that's enough about our lives. Why don't we get into what we wanted to talk about today? You were kind of excited about this.
Dude, where's my car?
Have you considered offering it up?
Have you considered praying about it? Have you considered suffering? Um,
Pain, suffering, even.
Surrender to divine providence.
Yeah, I think
What's our topic today, Andrew?
our topic today is on suffering and surrender, and why that is something that we as a culture need to remember how to do well.
I remember I was reading something one time, and it's like to every other religion, and that includes non-Catholic religions, suffering looks so asinine,
Mm-hmm.
right? So like to non-Catholic Christians, right? Like they would look at suffering and they'd be like, "Well, Jesus has already overcome the world, so like why?" You know? And then you look at like other religions and it's like Buddhism would say that suffering is,
An
an
imbalance.
illusion. Well, it's an illusion that there is no suffering and that you just need to overcome the illusion that is this world, and your suffering will end. And like for the Jews, right? And you even when you read the New Testament and some of the Old Testament, suffering is a direct result of something that you did. Um, which is like it's funny that sometimes does get brought up in Christian culture, right? Um, for the Muslims, suffering would be a direct result of you disobeying God.
Yeah, and most pagan religions would be the same. If you look at like Greek mythology, Norse mythology, if your life sucked, it's because you pissed off one of the gods.
Yeah. And so the interesting part about suffering for the Christian, for like the Catholic Christian, is that suffering is the means of intimacy with Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, suffering well, learning to suffer well, learning to quote unquote offer it up is the very means by which we grow into intimacy with Christ. Um, and so, like, St. Paul, he writes, like, to the Gentiles, the cross seems foolish, right? But for us, for Christians, the cross is the very means by how we gain everything, right? Unless you are pick up your cross and follow me, you are not worthy of me, right? And so I think the fun part about being a Catholic is like how much broader that makes the world be in the sense of suffering. And I
I
say that
I like
genuinely.
your choice of the word fun. It makes it seem like masochists. Like, oh, we enjoy suffering. It's great. It's our goal.
Well, right. Something else I read the other day was what separates a saint from a sinner is the saints don't even enjoy suffering, but they do it out of love for Jesus. And it's like, ooh, okay, right? But yeah, I think our culture is so adverse to suffering today. Um, have you heard of Brian Johnson?
That is one of the most generic white person names I've ever heard. So no.
Okay, so there's two Brian Johnsons that I'm speaking about. The first is a rather infamous um, bodybuilder, known for his rapid consumption of organ meats and his use of steroids.
Liver
You
King.
may know him better as the Liver King. Um, the other Brian Johnson is a man who is trying to reverse the aging process
It's a bold
and
strategy, Cotton.
quote unquote biohack.
Okay.
So he does this like through all the things like red light therapy and like stuff like that. But he also drinks his own son's blood.
Okay, we officially entered the weird part of the chat.
Yeah, but it's this idea of like, why are okay? So like on one end you've got Brian Johnson, who Oliver King, who's like trying to achieve some sort of media fame, right? Without actually having to go through some of the struggles. So what does he do? Well, he gets on steroids and then he starts inventing this narrative,
Mm-hmm.
which is not true. And he tries to find the easy way out. And that eventually leads him to his own level of suffering, right? And then on the other end of the Brian Johnson spectrum, you have, Brian Johnson who's trying to avoid aging because he sees aging as the one of the worst possible things you can do in this world.
It's the one inevitability in this world is that we will get older.
Yeah. And taxes.
And death. But yeah. Defund the IRS.
More beer, less taxes.
More guns, less taxes.
Um, but in both instances, these men are trying to escape suffering so that they might achieve what they want. And like at the heart of it, like what is it that we all seek? Right? Like, talking to my students about this, right? There's 4 levels of happiness as outlined by Aristotle. So there's latus, which is like your basic
Yeah,
gratification, like
yeah.
your desire for
Yeah,
food,
you're comfortable in the fact of like all your basics are taken care of.
your desire for food, your desire for sleep, your desire for sex, all those things. And then there's Felix, which is like your ego gratification. This is where like my desire for accomplishing something, the happiness that I get from that. And then there's Beatitudo, which is like the kind of gratification I get or the kind of happiness I get from helping others.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You and I both were teachers. The kind of gratification we get when a student finally got it. Right? And then there's the fourth kind of happiness, which is above all other types of happiness, called sublime beatitudo. Right? Which is this idea of I have even gone beyond just the gratification of my own desires and have made myself one with happiness.
Which I is it's one of those things that I love seeing the parallels of old philosophy match up very well with Christian ideology.
Mm-hmm.
I actually wrote part of my one of my papers in college was on it was a discussion between Aristotle and Aquinas, and we talked about how in that I talked about how they even though he had never met Jesus or had any interactions with the Judeo-Christian world, he understood a lot of what we were going for, um, which kind of implies that there is a natural order to things and that we can know things without having it divinely revealed to us because God has ordered the world in such a way. Um, but yeah, there's that concept of there's degrees of happiness, but the greatest one is when we like the two best ones are when we have achieved something greater than ourselves, like helping others, and then there's like even more so than that, but those require work, and those require you to be uncomfortable, and they require time, and that's
Yeah.
not something that our current culture is in line with in a lot of ways.
No, many people don't want to suffer because suffering means that I'm uncomfortable and I don't like being uncomfortable. And right, this is not an advocation for like you should go and try to suffer, right? Like it's funny, I think back over the last year. And last year in December we had like our campus ministry staff retreat. And I remember we were talking a lot about suffering. I was like, yeah, I feel like I haven't suffered a lot this semester. And now I'm here and I'm like, I've suffered too much.
God gives his
Um,
goofiest soldiers his silliest battles.
yes, yes, and I'm a silly goose. But all that to be said, like with the concept of suffering, I feel like one of the things we miss out on is like, you know, like yes, there's obviously like the grind set mentality, which is kind of, if you're a part of like gym culture or any type of business culture, it's like, oh, what are you willing to sacrifice today for the future of tomorrow?
Hmm.
And it's like, okay, what if you never actually see the results of your suffering in this life? Right? Like, okay, in my suffering, will I actually see if I offered up the countless souls that might have benefited from my suffering in purgatory until I reach the end of this life? Probably not.
Yeah.
Um, and like, how do we as Christians reconcile that? Because like, it makes a ton of sense when it comes to like, oh, I'm gonna go to the gym and like, work out for an hour, and like the benefit is this, or like I'm gonna wake up at 5 a.m. so I can get 2 more hours of work in, so I
Yeah.
can make more money and provide for my family.
And even teaching, like a lot of times you don't see the fruits of like whatever you're teaching them, but you can kind of gauge like based like when I was teaching seniors, obviously I'm not going to see what my teaching has done for them down the road, but some of them have come back and said, like I really appreciated you teaching us this. This made a lot of sense. This actually really helped me. So like even though it took a little while, I eventually saw some results of the work that I put in. But a lot of times you don't get that satisfaction. But you have an inkling of what you're going to do there. But with our own personal suffering, a lot of the time, you don't see it, um, or you don't see it for a very long time. I think that's something that, and there's a lot of uncertainty with it too, as far as what that looks like. Because with the gym, there's a very, if I put in this number of reps and I increase the weight, eventually I'm going to see these results in this way. Like there's kind of a timeline, but with life, you don't have a timeline. You don't have a guarantee that you'll see how this has benefited you in this life. And I think that's what
Mm.
scares a lot of people.
Yeah, yeah. And I think like it's like one of those things where it's like, okay, how do we embrace suffering, right? So with my car being stolen, right? This has been one of the worst weeks of my life. Like I would say that. Like
And I think you'd be
pretty
fair in
crappy.
saying that.
It's a pretty crappy week. Primarily because like it's out of my hands. There's nothing I can do about it. It might be like a $3,000 bill to get my car fixed. Like that's a lot of like.
There's a
I'm
lot
just
of
like, all right,
uncertainty, and it's out of your control. That's the worst part of it. As people, especially as men, we like being in control of whatever situation we're in. And when life hits us in a hard way, it freaks us out.
yeah. And to put this proportionally, right? Like the amount of suffering I'm undergoing by losing a car is very minimal to the amount of suffering a majority of the human race faces each day.
Hmm.
Right? Like third world countries, communist regimes, you know, like this is nothing compared to what a majority of the human race has been through or is currently going through. But in my case, like this is perhaps one of the worst things that could have happened to me at this point in my life.
But within reason, there's way worse things that it could happen to you. But from your experience and things that have happened, this is one of the worst.
Yeah. And so like how do I struggle through this? And like you've known I've had car issues since you have known me.
Yep. Yes. Yes, you have. I've been involved with almost all of them.
Yeah, you in fact stole this car. It was great.
Yeah, I just want to teach you a lesson. No, but there was your tire. You getting a flat Franciscan in the worst spot possible. Your I think it was this car or the car right before you moved. Your car had hail damage.
This car had hail damage. Before that, moved to Texas. You and Brendan come to visit. Somebody pulls out in front of me.
Yep. Yeah, that was the dumbest thing that was considered your fault. Literally, you're both going straight, and they just decide to turn left in front of you when
Yeah,
they're
because
not.
Texas has
They did turn
Texas
right
has
in front
dumb
of you.
laws because I hit them in the rear of their car. It would be my fault.
Yeah, even though they turned where they were in a not right to turn lane. But anyway, yeah, you've got great luck with cars.
Well, and then that same car I totaled 2 weeks before I'm supposed to move to Michigan.
Yep, and then you hit the current car, then you got hail damage on that car. Now the car got stolen.
Yeah. And so I've had a rough go of it with cars. And I don't know, every time I just fall into like a certain level of despair where it's just like this is the worst thing ever. Um and I think with that it's like offering up the suffering. I'm like, all right, Lord, I don't know what you're gonna do with this. And I'm not gonna say I'm gonna like it, but I'm just gonna give it to you. Right?
Yeah, I think that one thing that we struggle with as a culture is kind of what you started talking about. Like we compare suffering a lot of times. Um, and there's two kind of ways you could do it. You could compare like, hey, like in a positive spin of like, you know what, this sucks, but it could be a lot worse.
Yeah.
And I think that's a healthy approach to it. Like, you know what, this sucks. This could be a lot worse. There's a plan in this, and that's the healthy mentality. But I think in our culture, a lot of time, if someone's going through something, uh, a lot of times we get a, oh, you think that's bad? Well, blah 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 is happening to this person, and blah 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 is happening to this person, or I'm suffering in this way, so it's really not that bad for you. It's a negative comparison, and I think that's not what we're supposed to do. But it happens a lot. Like comparison is
Yeah.
the thief of joy, as my wife likes to say.
I also think though there is something about like negating your suffering is also not healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Um right, like I think actually for you to just be like, "Oh, it's nothing." Right? It's like "'Tis but a flesh wound," to use the words of the Monty Python Black Knight. Right? It's like, no, acknowledge that you're wounded. Acknowledge that
Yeah,
you're hurt. Acknowledge that the suffering sucks. Because if you just ignore the suffering, then it's also not redemptive.
yeah. It's a balancing act. Putting in perspective is healthy, and understanding that it sucks, but it could be worse is good. But you have to acknowledge that there is suffering happening because if, like you said, if you don't, if you're like, ah, it's no big deal. I'm like, when it is a big deal, one, you're just, that's not smart. If you're like, if you heard someone like, ah, it's no big deal, and then you just didn't do anything with it, that's just not smart. But also, you're not going to grow from it in any way because growth requires suffering. It requires pain in some capacity. And if you're ignoring that pain completely, it's only going to make things worse.
Well, but also like on the other end, right? What if there is no growth from the suffering? What if the suffering is just something you have to go through?
I think that there is always going to be growth from suffering if you treat it properly. Like it's not, it may be like I was meant to grow in this way, but you are being challenged in some way. And whether you get stronger as a result of it, mentally, physically, spiritually, that's up to you and your attitude.
So let's apply this logic because I'm not wholly disagreeing with you. But Christ suffering on the cross, could he grow any more than what he already was, the perfected human
No,
man?
because he was already perfect. But I'm saying we as
Okay.
imperfect people are suffering as imperfect people because he was fully God and fully man, but he was perfect in both of those. He can't, literally perfect. You can't get better. But for us, our goal is to unite our suffering with Christ. We are to imitate him. And for us, that is, our suffering is our way for us to get closer to him.
Mhm.
And him being the pinnacle, the perfect human, our goal is always going to be to strive to him. We're never going to get there on this earth, but we got to keep trying. And that's the whole purpose of our life, is to try to grow in different ways so we can unite ourselves with Christ. Because he didn't eliminate suffering when he went on the cross. He redeemed it. He gave it purpose. And
Yeah.
Colossians, I can't remember the exact verse, but it's suffering unites us with the cross of Christ. We're called not to just endure suffering, but embrace it as participation in the salvation of Christ, that Christ has started and that He did for us. Um,
Mhm.
Deacon Mike said it really well. Like with if there's no cross, there's no crown. If there's no Good Friday, there's no Easter Sunday. We are meant to go to the cross. We are meant to take our suffering to Him, but we're not meant to wallow in it. If we just let our suffering
Right.
overtake us, then there is no growth because we've not pushed past it. It might take us a very long time to get past it, but we have to eventually come down from that cross and go to the cave, go to where Jesus is.
Yeah, I guess this is where like I still have questions because like okay, taking on voluntary penances, not because you're trying to overcome a specific sin, but out of love for Jesus, you're just like, I'm gonna do this thing, or out of love for another soul, right? So, there was a friend I had at Franciscan who was dating someone who was just not good for them, and one of her friends was like, "Cool, I'm gonna sleep on the floor for the next month as an act of prayer to the Lord that she would break up with her boyfriend." I don't see any personal growth from that person because they willingly chose to do that out of love for their friend. And I mean, maybe it increased their love for their friend,
I was
but
gonna
that
say,
person,
I would say that it increases their love for their friend. That's showing that their devotion to their
but I don't,
understanding of
yeah,
prayer. That like this, like I am voluntarily taking this on because I want something good to happen for you, and I'm going to put my body on the line for it. I'm going to embrace discomfort because I want something better for you.
right. But what I'm getting at is I don't think that that suffering is necessarily growth oriented, and therefore I don't think all suffering is. I would say that suffering, like there is suffering that is growth oriented, right? Like progressive overload at the gym is a type of suffering, right? With growth as the mindset of like, yeah, I'm going to continually push myself in the gym to get stronger, to run further, to do all these things, right? But then I think there's a type of suffering where it's like, I'm not doing this to get better. I'm doing this purely because it is a means by which I can participate in Christ's redemption of the person.
I think that is still it's I think it's a mindset thing with that. It's I am growing as a person that Christ would want, like as a person who is following Christ
But
more
it's not. But
deeply.
I'm saying it's not for you, right? It's
It does,
like,
but I think that active participation is for you.
but then it becomes self-centered,
It
and then
doesn't.
it's not
It doesn't have.
redemptive.
Yeah. It can. It doesn't have to be about me to still help me. I think if everything we do is I want to be a better disciple, which I think that is the mindset we should be having. I want to be a better disciple. I want to follow Christ more closely. If that's not informing every decision that we're making, we're missing the point of being a disciple. When Jesus called, Andrew and Peter, he said, leave behind, like, drop everything, come follow me. Like, your whole life is going to be about following me and understanding what I'm doing. And they did. And they weren't perfect at it. They suffered a lot. They had to leave everything behind. They went through a lot of trials, tribulations. But at the end of the day, they became the first disciples. And they're known throughout the ages. I'm not saying they're doing it for the glory of being the first disciples, but everything about it, like, even if that's not your goal, is like, I'm doing this because this is going to make me a better, but like, that should be your mindset for everything. Like when you're going through suffering, all right, whether it's self-inflicted because you're trying to do self-inflicted penance, or you're trying to do it to help someone else, or it's life throwing stuff at you, what is my reaction going to be? Is my reaction going to further my cause to get closer to Christ and unite my suffering with Him, or is it going to detract from it? And I think that's the mindset we have to have when it comes to everything that we do.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Probably something I still need to think more about and pray about. I'm still not convinced that like every act of suffering leads to growth. I do think that every act of suffering can be redemptive, but I think those are two separate qualities.
I think being redemptive, and I think this is where we're just going to disagree on the definition or the premise of it. But I think that if we are in an act of something that is redemptive, it is growing, it is bettering our soul, it is bettering our disposition towards Christ. That's the way I view it. It might not be in a growth mentality in the same way that like the gym, but I think it is actively growing our soul and bettering our soul.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's just it might not be your active mindset, but a passively that I think that is happening.
Okay. Yeah.
So speaking of redemptive suffering, um, I think that when we look at, because this is something that we kind of touched on, like the way that we suffer informs kind of our general outlook. Uh, what do you do when you are going through tough times?
Cry.
No, 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 Josh, we're men. We don't cry. We weep.
No, I cry.
Baby.
Um, when my car got stolen, the first thing I did is I punched a tree, and then I cussed, and then I said, "Okay, what do I need to do next?" Um,
Oh, oh, we lost you there. Hold on.
oh, sorry.
Oh, we're good. You're
Okay,
back. You're back.
what did you last hear?
I heard punched a tree.
Oh, so I punched a tree, cussed, and then thought about, okay, what's the next thing I need to do?
It's a very man
Um,
mindset.
but there wasn't a lot of like thoughts of like how can I offer this up? Um, I didn't really think about that. I was just like, I just got to get through the next thing because I was like, I know I need to go to work today. Like today is one of our biggest days of the year.
Mm-hmm.
You know, okay, do I call my boss? Do I get an Uber? What do I need to do? You know, I got to call insurance. I got to call my loan holding agency. I got to call the police. Um, I think there's that. I think when I've undergone voluntary suffering, right? So this last year, I really pushed myself throughout most of Lent to try to avoid eating food until the last meal of the day would be, which would be dinner time around like 4:30, 5 o'clock. At least on Wednesdays and Fridays.
Mm-hmm. And I think Lent is a good
That's
topic for this.
that's that sucked. Um, because I'm a fat kid and I like food.
I'm a
Um,
skinny kid and I like food.
yeah, you don't eat. Um, and so the problem is that like, or not the problem, but like that really did kind of put into my mind like, mm, I really do rely on food a lot to like deal with these feelings that I'm feeling sometimes. So like even now trying to eat healthier, being able to recognize I don't actually need this piece of food. What I need is probably some water, and I need to go spend some time in prayer, um, or things like that, or just being able to in the midst of suffering, it's not hard, but I'm just like, all right, Jesus, whatever you're gonna use this for, use it, and then I'm like, I just go on, right? Like honestly, I think a lot of it is just like seeing it, pushing through it, and moving on. There's not much more to it than that.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the man response in a lot of ways. Because even non Christian men, that's how like when life throws them a curveball, it's all right. How am I going to get through this? And I think the most important point of what you did there is you didn't just wallow in it. You allowed yourself to be sad for a few minutes, but you said that's just being sad is not going to fix the problem.
Well, and like sometimes there's problems that you can't fix,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, okay, so my grandfather passed away in 2023. I went into work that day. I told my boss, and he's like, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "Honestly, I'm just gonna work. But if there's a reason why I feel off, this is why." And I really used that time of silent work to just talk with the Lord about my grandfather and how much I was gonna miss him. Because I was like, there's nothing I can do to bring him back. right? That's a point of suffering, right? Like death is a point of suffering, which
It's
there
pretty
is no
final.
end to. Yeah, it looks pretty final. Um, and so you just look at it and you're like, okay, this is what it is. There's nothing I can do about it. Um, or like the COVID-19 pandemic. Don't care if we get canceled. Um, but like I was 90% certain I was never gonna see you guys again.
Yeah, I remember us planning that trip down there to hang out with you for a little bit and then go get our stuff. But I was like, I'm not going to get to finish college in person. I'm like, that's not going to happen. I'm not going to see my friends ever again. The world is shutting down because that was there. There was a lot of despair that happened during COVID that I think we are still dealing with as a culture today. Um, I still see people wearing masks, and it's been over for you know 4 years at this point. Um,
Yeah.
but like, and it's and people still talk about how we're still seeing the repercussions of it. Kids in school, and like that was a massive trial that the whole world undertook, and we didn't take it well in a lot of ways. Oh, your mic's gone again.
Yeah, my phone keeps ringing, so
Ah,
but we're handling it. No, we did not. And but like those are types of suffering that were out of our control, didn't seem to have an end sight. And it's like, what do you do in those moments? And I really feel like you have one of two responses. You either despair or you say, I will be done. Right? Like, um, oh man. There is a song, I cannot remember what oh, it's called It Is Well. It was written by a Scottish Presbyterian man who lost his daughters and his wife when they were traveling from Scotland to America on a boat. And he was like, there's nothing I can do in this. And so he wrote this song called It As Well, right? Where it's just like, you know, he's basically talking about like losing everything that he wanted in life, but that it is well with his soul because this is God's will. And I think for many of us, that's the hardest thing to reconcile because it's like, I mean, if you lost Miriam, I would never wish that upon you. But like, how would you be even able to like comprehend that first off? And then
I definitely could not. I don't know what I would
yeah,
do. um,
but like to have the strength and the courage to be like, I will be done.
and that's something we talk about in OCA. It's one of our hardest topics. Is that we are when we look at like the story of salvation, like it's always been like there has been suffering for humans since humanity first sinned. There has been suffering, but how do we handle that? How do we reconcile that with a God that is all loving and all powerful? And that's one of the biggest questions that we get as Christians, not just as Catholics, but Christians in general. How can your God be all loving and all powerful, and I still suffer? And the reality of it is, we live in this broken world, and Miriam talks. We actually just heard Father Mike Schmidt talk about it. There's God's perfect will, and then there's his permissive will. He allows things to happen because ultimately something greater can come about from it. Um, but like he never wishes for us to suffer. He never wishes for us to go through hardships. But that's the nature of free will that we have to deal with. Um, but I think when we look at suffering and how to suffer well, the worst thing that we can do is constantly avoid suffering in our lives, because if we voluntarily understand how to suffer well in the little things, it prepares us for the big things. Um, looking at not every suffering has to be dramatic. Um, dealing with rude coworkers at work or difficult time at your job. you deal with long lines at the grocery store, whatever, like little thing, like practicing it in the little ways, like I'm offering this up to you, and just trying to push through it and find the good in it where you can, I think is the best, progressive overload, so to speak, that we could do. So when we are hit with these big things, it's not just hitting us completely unaware.
Yeah.
This is not nearly as happy of a topic as the past couple have been.
Oh no, no, not at all. Because suffering is not fun, right? If you enjoy suffering,
We have a term for that. You're a
like,
masochist.
right, but there's something wrong with you, right? And I say that with all love and charity, like, get help. Um, right, the people who seek out suffering because they get a rise out of it. Well, number one, that's your body's response to like when you're in a situation that you're not supposed to be in. But also, like, hey, get help.
Stop it.
Like,
Get help.
huh. um, and I think all that to be said is just like, the Lord doesn't desire us to suffer. He desires us to become one with Him, right? To be like Him in all things, and that if our God suffered on the cross, then we too must suffer.
Hmm.
And I think like people read things, right? Like I was even thinking about this yesterday. I was watching a video by a Protestant, and he was talking about Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. Like, the number one verse that's plastered on gym walls and on people's bios and things like that. But the thing that people miss is Philippians 4:12. Do you know what Philippians 4:12 says?
I'm Catholic. I don't read the Bible.
St. Paul, he writes, I have learned to be in content in all things, in plenty and in want. Right. It's that idea of like learning to be content because through Christ I can do all things. Right. In the midst of suffering, right? It's that act of being content and knowing that well, I can use this as a moment to embrace Christ's cross because he will get me through to the other end. Either by embracing the final act of suffering, which is death, and being united to him, or by overcoming this moment of suffering and growing in union with him.
See, there's the growth mentality. You got it.
Yeah, yeah. I it's
I'm just kidding. But yeah, and I think that's the most important thing though, is the goal is to overcome the suffering. It might take a long time, but the goal is that we have to overcome it. And that can look at the way that happens can be in a lot of ways. Um, but the goal at the end of the day is to overcome that suffering by relying on prayer, our friends, our family, our community, and God. And I think that
define overcome the suffering.
overcome, like finding that redemption, finding that growth in
Okay.
it. Um, because we're not meant to just wallow in the suffering. Like, yep, this is all it's gonna be. This is my life now. Like if your reaction to when you lost your car was punching the tree, cussing, and then just sitting there and you never got up from it, that's not overcoming the suffering. Overcoming is, how do I get past this? How can I continue to live within this current state? And that's the correct response. Um, the worst thing that we can do is just say, well, this is my life now, and I'm not going to try to get any better.
Yeah. And you just have to you have to trust in Jesus. You have to trust that he will see you through it. I mean, it would have been so much harder, I feel like, for me to have gone through the death of my grandfather, gone through the loss of my car, gone through moving over the last 5 years 3 times, you know, taking jobs that literally ended up being some of the worst experiences of my life if I didn't have Jesus. And I'll not even deny there were points where you know, even while working for the church, in previous jobs, I was so like done. I stopped going to mass. I stopped praying because I was just like, Jesus, you feel very far away right now. And like I definitely look back at it now. I'm like, I missed great moments to offer up that suffering. Um, I probably would be a better person if I hadn't run away from the struggle and instead embraced it and said, Lord, what do you want to use this for?
But I think that shows great growth that you recognize, because I'm the same way in a lot of ways. There's been plenty of times where I have been in desolation, just said, what's the point of all of this? And rather than turning to Jesus, it's just been, I'm just going to continue to be sad. Which again, there's nothing wrong with allowing yourself to be sad when something bad happens, but at some point you have to come down from that cross. And I've had stuff that it's taken me 2 or 3 years to finally come down from that cross.
Yeah.
But being here, I think talking about it is good because we're not alone in our suffering. And I think that's the kind of last thing I want to touch on, because we're coming up on 50 minutes. But find it, like, I don't understand, and we talk about this at MPB all the time. I don't understand how people get through life without Jesus, without your faith, your family, your friends. Those are the three things that you need to get through life in general. And the people who are missing one of those, faith being the most important, but having your family and friends is something I have relied on so heavily for anytime I'm going through struggles. Like when I lost my job, if I didn't have you, my wife, my parents, all of our friends supporting me, and then just being able to pray and say, God, what are you doing to me through this? Where do you want me to go from this? Because I don't see the plan. If I didn't have it, I don't know what I would have done.
Yeah. I want to end with a quote from a great philosopher by the name of Technoblade. You, for
I
those of
know
you who don't
I
know,
know, I know Technoblade.
for those of you who don't know Technoblade, Technoblade was a Minecraft YouTuber who died from cancer. What was it in 2020?
Right around there, yeah.
And someone asked him, like everybody knew he had cancer. He had leukemia, I believe, was the type of cancer. Um, and one time somebody asked him on a live stream, like, do you think you're ever going to beat cancer? And he goes, well, yeah. He said, one way or another, I'm going to beat it. Either like, you know, cancer is not going to win this fight, or no. Somebody asked him, do you think the cancer is going to win? He goes, no, there's no chance, because either I'm going to beat it, or it's going to come to a draw because I'm going to take it with me.
I know where you heard that recently.
But I was like, dang,
It's pretty metal.
that's pretty metal. Um,
It is that outlook. Is suffering going to win? At the end of the day, no.
no, and even like, I mean, the flaw in his thought is like, for Christians, for us who believe in Christ and who seek to follow him and seek to become his disciples, the cancer doesn't even get a draw. The cancer loses either way. Like Blessed Chiara Badana was literally dying of leukemia, and she would rip out chunks of her hair as she was dying from leukemia, and she would say, "All to you, Jesus." Right? This idea of like, the cancer doesn't win in the end. The leukemia doesn't win. The pneumonia doesn't win. The losing my car doesn't win. Jesus won. And if I embrace his path for my salvation, which includes suffering, then I too can win.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to end
I
it
know,
off
I
there.
was picking on that one.
I like that. I like that. That was good. That was good. So, as we do with every episode, we ask the important question: how are you going deeper this week?
Embracing suffering.
Embracing suffering.
Well, I haven't been going to the gym because, you know,
Ever,
if you can't tell, I'm a little congested. I'm not trying to sneeze all over everybody at Planet Fitness.
probably for the best.
Come back to me. How are you going deeper?
I am going deeper. Uh, Trying to think of the best way to phrase this. I'm going deeper by having uncomfortable conversations. Um,
Oh,
well, I I was I told you this yesterday. I was talking with my uncle Dave, and he listened to our last episode, and he was asking me a lot of questions that uncomfortable might not be the right word, but they were like he was asking me a lot of questions, like how can you be a follower of Jesus, but also reconcile that with being a follower of Trump, and it was just having those.
don't follow Trump.
I'm like, I don't follow Trump, being very consistent with my, but just like it's uncomfortable in the fact of you're talking with family about politics, and I know that we disagree on a lot of things, but I want to make it very clear where I stand on these things, and that can be a little uncomfortable. But rather than running away from it, I did my best to just answer the questions as straightforward as I could. And we had a pretty civil conversation about the whole thing. And eventually I said, hey, I think we're just kind of going in circles here. I think I've made what my stance is pretty clear. But rather than saying, I don't want to talk to you and pushing him away, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try to be as clear as I can about where I stand. We're allowed to disagree on things, but at the end of the day, we're still family. So embracing that awkward conversation. And then we started talking about books. So it ended up, we ended on a nice light note. But having that difficult or uncomfortable conversation of let's talk about stuff that we disagree on and being okay with it.
Okay. Okay. Hmm. I am going deeper this week. I'm trying to think of things I haven't already said.
It could be something you've already done, but you have a renewed focus on it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going deeper this week by being boring. Allow me to explain.
I was going to say, you're going to need to clarify that one.
Recently, I went to a conference, and at the conference, it was a leadership conference, and at the conference, one of the speakers said, "You need to be a boring leader." What did he mean by that? He said, "Boring leaders are faithful leaders. They do the same thing every day. They don't seek to be
Mm,
innovative where they don't need to be. They are faithful to what they are supposed to do." So I am being a boring leader.
I like that, actually. I've never thought about it that way.
I want to do a whole podcast about that.
No, I think we should. I think it's a different take on it, but I actually like that a lot.
Okay. Well, this has been fun.
Yeah. Thanks for listening to us talk about how much life sucks for the past hour. Uh, Thank you to all of our regular
I don't
listeners.
remember you mentioning your personal suffering.
I mentioned that I had some. I just didn't go into details on it. No, I talked about losing my job.
Okay. Okay.
Uh,
All right.
but thanks to all of our dedicated listeners, Mom, Mike, Todd, anyone else, Uncle Dave.
Uncle Dave.
Thanks for listening.
Those two students, you know who you are.
Uh, Tune in next week for when we talk about whatever. But as always, hit the like notification, subscribe, all that jazz. Check out our blogs.
Tune in 2 weeks to find out what we talk about next.
Yes,
Because we'll have a quick fire catechesis in between now and then.
yes. Read our blogs. Unlike Josh,
I don't
uh,
read.
he can't read. And with that,
No, 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 I can. I just choose not to.
have a blessed day. Peace and blessings.